Atlanta, Georgia became one of the most important voting areas in the country during a generation-defining election. And thanks to Atlanta's players and owners, it became one of the largest voting centers in American history. Quicktake's chief correspondent Jason Kelly looks at how Atlanta sports changed U.S. politics in the first episode of the Business of Sports. Check it out.
We were sitting on an empty arena. No basketball, no concerts, no shows. But we had something in our arena that is rare. You can find it in very few places, and that's space.
When you own a sports franchise, hopefully any business, but certainly a sports franchise, you have an obligation to try to be relevant to the public. Why not use the arena as a voting location, as a polling location?
Well, I absolutely remember getting a call, a phone rang. Actually, I have a flip phone. I have it. So it rang. And on the other end was my good friend, Steve Coonan. So he said, we would like to find out and to know if there is a role that we at the Atlanta Hawks and State Farm Arena can play.
I think we really did create sort of the largest, safest, most efficient polling location this country had ever seen. I think the responsibility, from my perspective, is really to be a good community asset, to be hopefully a great business, a great franchise, win basketball games, and be a really positive member of the community.
Well, Quicktake chief correspondent Jason Kelly joins me now. Hey, Jason, great to see you.
Nice to see you.
I love this.
Thank you.
Why is Atlanta the perfect place? Why is this the perfect story to tell?
Well, it's the perfect story for a number of reasons. I mean, one, because of some of the decisions that you just heard a little bit about that were made last year. And it's a perfect story in part because of Atlanta's history. You know, I mean, this is the cradle of the civil rights movement. This is Martin Luther King Jr.'s hometown. And this is a city that has long wrestled with its own racial identity, with the politics of race. It's also an economic boomtown. And the demographics have shifted so dramatically. All of these things just came together in 2020.
Everything came down to Georgia in the 2020 election. And even in 2021 with the special election. Yes. Have we ever seen athletes get involved in politics like this before?
We have not. I mean, this was coming. This was brewing in some ways. And if you think back to Colin Kaepernick, if you think back to LeBron James back in 2018, he's told to shut up and dribble. He definitely goes the other way on that in many ways. And athletes were completely enraged and energized in some ways by the killing of George Floyd. And so, you know, the protests of last summer really brought all of those issues into focus. And one of the things that they did as a community of athletes was to zero in on this notion of how can we affect change? Get people to vote. And it became just the central message of almost every star athlete. What
came first in this story? Was it the athletes, or was it the managers, or was it the actual owners? Because it's not just a decision of the athletes, as you explore in the series.
Exactly right, and it's a really good point. I mean, the athletes were doing their thing to some extent to energize people to vote. The problem was we were in a global pandemic. We still are, and they needed a place to vote, and that's where the owners and the management came in. And the Hawks get a lot of credit, and they should in many ways, because they came up with the idea. I mean, you heard Steve Coonan talk about it. They've got this empty arena. Why not turn it in and turn it into a voting location? One of the things Steve Coonan said to me when I interviewed him is he said, once you hear it, you go, yeah, well, of course that makes sense. But nobody had done it before. And then that becomes a template by which dozens of other teams in basketball and outside use to provide safe voting locations.
I have a how the sausage is made question, because this is a global pandemic that we're in right now. In a typical year, Jason, you'd be traveling to Atlanta to actually tell this story. It's something that you explore in your piece, and
Yes.
you actually show that you're doing this from your daughter's bedroom.
That's absolutely
at one point.
right. Yeah.
How do you tell this story without being there?
I mean, part of it is I was very fortunate that I had a lot of relationships. I grew up there, and for those of you who know me or don't know me, there's some nice pictures at the beginning of me with hair, me as a small kid playing soccer, so that's sort of the teaser to get you.
Look, I feel like I know you pretty well at this point. We've worked together for a while, but there were things I didn't know about you that I learned very early on in that series.
Yeah, so that was I definitely had a home court advantage in that regard. And listen, this was a story that needed to be told, in part because this was a generational election, as you say, and the turnout in Georgia changed the face of the election.
Well, let's look at voter turnout there, because as we talked about and as we've seen, what ended up happening in Georgia with the special election and the election of two Democrats in the state has already shifted what the country has been able to do and what Joe Biden has been able to do with the recovery package that he was able to push through, the $1.9 trillion recovery package. Where does the story continue, though? Because Georgia finds itself right now really in a similar place at the nation's attention because of what's happening there with voting in the Republican legislature and governor.
Well, I think it's fair to say, and I think this is non-controversial, that a lot of what you're seeing in Georgia right now is a reaction to what happened. You have a GOP-controlled legislature, a Republican governor who have now signed a law that by many people's read restricts voting access and seeks to undo, in part, some of what we saw from a turnout perspective in November and then, as you say, in January. The balance of power shifted in the United States largely because of what happened in Georgia.
How does what happened in Georgia during the 2020 election, during the special election, how does that go to other parts of the country? Do we start to see athletes get even more involved in the political process?
I think we do. I mean, I think we saw, the template be used by the teams themselves. And I think it emboldened a lot of athletes, more than a vote. LeBron's organization was very involved in what happened down in Georgia. They were energized in many ways. Renee Montgomery, a former Dream player, is now one of the owners of the Dream, which is another twist in this story that is...
And a familiar name no longer is.
Exactly. Kelly Loeffler, who lost her Senate seat, ultimately sold the Atlanta Dream. That's part of the story as well.
And she's now working on her own initiatives with regard to voting.
That's exactly right. And, you have people lining up on either sides of this issue. You have a lot of corporations facing a huge amount of pressure even this week around going against what's going on in Georgia.
Well, Jason, it is just a fantastic piece. I encourage everybody to check it out. You can check out the full premiere episode of Business of Sports. It's on Quicktake's YouTube channel. This, of course, Quicktake's chief correspondent, Jason Kelly. Jason, always great to see you. Thanks so much for your time.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quicktake now for insight in an instant.